In a week where Leinster are bottom, Lowry was the hero, and Lancaster made his mark, and so much more, this rugby show is going to have to break outside its sporting confines. Let's start the show. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Interpro Show, your home for all things Irish rugby across the professional amateur men's and women's game in Ireland. What a weekend we've had. I'm your host, Caolán Scully, back from the depths of traitor fandom, turned Ryder Cup hysteria. We'll get onto that in a minute. And I'm joined again by Adam and David, while Ben may or may not be heading south to teach Leinster a lesson. We don't know. We cannot prove that, but I think he is. Anyways, gentlemen, we'll start at the start. I'm sure we all had a great weekend, a busy weekend for sure. AIL was back, NFL was in Dublin, the Ryder Cup was on, there was Premier League on as well. There's Club Hurling, Club Football Championships. There's URC was back. That was the last one I managed to mention somehow. Ben, I'll start with yourself because you were in Croke Park and you were following the Ryder Cup. Have we ever had a weekend where the Munster rugby was the least stressful sporting occasion of your week?
No, and it was excellent for watching it. The watch was calm during Munster. But I will say Crow Park was outstanding. I know we're not an NFL podcast, we're not going to talk an awful lot about it, but in terms of atmosphere, in terms of how they organise things, a certain rugby club that's based in the south side of Dublin could learn an awful lot from them and how to actually get people in time for a game. It was terrific. Then you come home, and as you said, the Ryder Cup was the most stressful part of the entire weekend. Um, I think I texted you at 8 o'clock and said, "Oh, have we won yet?" And the
Yeah.
response is just don't turn it on. Just stay on the train and don't do it.
It was that kind of vibe. I was like, and I'm usually a positive guy, but I was like, I'm losing the amount of possibilities they have to win this. And that does not feel good. I don't know if you were watching as well, Adam, but it was definitely that sense of like iconic sporting moment. And I always say, well, I don't always say this. When I said this the last couple of years, when I've started to talk to people who like more than one sport, which used to be an issue for me. But there's this like litmus test of Irish fandom, and it's either your mam or your sport, but not necessarily that sport friend. Both of those, in my instance, were like, "How's the golf going? How's the golf going? What's
Yeah,
happening here?"
it,
And
it
I think that's the incredible part. And the fact that it was Shane Lowry, and I know you're a Northern Irishman, you're an Ulsterman, it's a little bit different for you. But for myself and Ben,
I,
Shane Lowry is your perfect Irish man type thing. And that just I think we need to start a golf show, guys.
Should we all go in the drive? No, yeah, it's really good to see an Irish athlete do well. Do you know what I mean? Like we had our moment with Rory. Rory was on the team as well, so anything to get Shane on to that pedestal as well is just amazing. As you said, like my mum was even going like, "Have you seen the state of those American fans? I really hope they win the golf and they shove it up." And I was like, "Whoa, okay."
She
It
was
was
she
like
was right. It should be said.
Oh yeah, 100%, yeah. But it was one of those that everyone was talking about it, and the right people won. Because the absolute state of some of the stuff that we saw over the weekend, especially what happened to like Roy McIlroy's wife as well. Like it was just mental, and sporting success never tastes so sweet when it's against people that do that essentially.
Yeah,
Um,
no, definitely.
Like
And there's
it was
that
almost sad
element.
that it took away like from what was an excellent day in Dublin. Like the NFL was incredible, and it should have like they did everything to make it the showpiece event for the weekend. And then Shane Lowry goes and does that. It's just insane.
Yeah,
It's incredible.
that's the game. That's the moment that will live long in the memory. Like it's amazing how, and for anyone who's not Irish, reading in the years is just this weird concept that we're going to talk about. But it's an Irish show where it looks back on years gone by. And this is going to have two golf moments as its two signature sporting moments ahead of
Yeah,
like Cork Tipperary and Kerry against Donegal. Do you know what I mean?
thankfully
Like
for any Cork
that's
people.
well, sure. Look, we'll get into that another time. But like that's the weird thing about it. Like these were the moments. Like, and it's incredible. And like for me, as I said, like it just transcends that like barrier that golf never does. Rugby does sometimes. Football always will when it's big time enough. Golf rarely does, and it was very, very cool. And obviously, NFL had its big day out. I have to ask, and we will move on after this. Ben, the question that has been dividing the nation. What was your thoughts on Lyra's rendition of Aronovine?
I hated every bit of it.
Okay, I'm
It
not blaming
started
you.
really well, and then you're singing along nicely, and then she does the American pause at the end of the last verse, and like
Yeah,
people around us trying to sing it, myself included, all just kind of stopped. It's like, wait, where's the rest of it?
Is
But
she expecting us to go on, Vikings, go on,
yeah,
get
I'm
stuck
like,
into them?
you made such a big deal, and Croker made a big deal about respect the anthem all year, and then she inbuilds a pause when she does it.
Yeah, it wasn't for me. Maybe I'm just that boring old man who watches
No.
the established sports, but that's
And that's
just
it.
not
I'm an
for
old
me.
man who wants my Iran to go very tight, 2 and a bit minutes, that it's finished and it's done.
I've actually
Um,
never timed it, to be honest. But yes,
it,
exactly that. But we're going to go from the north side of Dublin all the way to South Africa and to Cape Town. That is our game of the week. For the season where there's going to be four provincial games, we're going to have a kind of standout games we're going to touch on the most, or two. In this case, it's going to be two this week, and then kind of touch on the rest. Because, look, it's just the nature of it. Like, not every game deserves the same amount of time as the rest. But, Adam, going to start with you. No one. I know you all went for the Stormers. I didn't. I didn't. I thought Leinster would win this. None of you had a 35-0 win. This is the reigning champions, bottom of the table after week one. And yes, that can happen sometimes too. But this was unexpected. This was quite the result, wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't a bad Leinster team either. I know the way that it's in a traditional sense that Leinster would send down like a C team, but this was more like a B team slash they had Prendergast, they had Robbie Henshaw, they had O'Brien, they both O'Briens, it wasn't a weak Leinster team. This was a really abnormal experience when I was watching it. It was sort of like an outer body, like what is going on with the URC type of feeling. It was like, do Leinster fans have this about us when we lose by a nil? Probably not. But yeah, it was one of those that it was just so weird. And Prendergast was relative. Most of the team was relatively absent. There's no one player to blame, to be perfectly honest. Which is, the thing about it is that we can't just pin it down to one player. They just did not show up at all. The I thought the two yellow cards really killed that game as well. It's the lack of like it was just really silly errors that just led to really easy tries. And one of the Stormers tries as well, it was just like a hot knife through butter. Granted, it was against 13 players, but it was pass the 10, skip pass, run in, corner try. You wouldn't expect Leinster to be down to 13 men, even if they were down to 13 men, you would expect them to defend that. It was just a bizarre way to start the URC.
It really was. And like Ben, we can touch upon defense or attack or whatever. Like Leinster are in that fortunate position where they're going to be getting it from both sides because they didn't score anything. They also conceded 35 points unanswered then. But the fact that the Stormers did cut them open, had complete dominance at set piece, probably should have scored more, like in terms of like they missed like three or four attempts on goal in the first half. It's that really weird performance that I think if you were being positive, you'd say, oh, it's just one of those. It's just one of those. Sometimes that'll happen. It's just, it doesn't happen to Leinster. It's literally been 18 years since they've been nilled in the URC.
in the URC is important because they did get nilled by Montpellier, just to make
Oh,
sure that's out there.
I'm
They
not
did.
allowed to count that. I'm not allowed.
But no, like it is weird that you can write it off as it was a poor performance and it shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen to Leinster. It doesn't happen to Leinster. But their attack malfunctioned. Their defense, which Bar has them drilled, we know from Munster time, 14 men drills, 13 men drills, even 12-man drills. He does it week in, week out. It didn't work. I said this to you earlier. Their set piece just absolutely fell apart. I've never seen an Irish team's maul collapse that way, let alone Leinster's maul. Deegan was lucky. Deegan got the yellow, fine. He could have got one 10 minutes earlier. He could have got one half an hour earlier. Without going too deep into tactical stuff, but like their maul formation was Deegan standing on the far side every single time. The scrum, we'll have a season of making fun of Leinster scrum, I'm sure. But without Andrew Porter, it still does that. It got barreled over by what is a second string Stormers pack.
Yeah.
We can say it's a one-off. We can say, oh look, it doesn't happen to Leinster. It's fine. It could well happen again on Saturday. The
Yeah.
Bulls are good enough
Yeah.
to run. I don't think they will, but the Bulls are good enough to exploit every single issue the Stormers showed. And again, like the first kick through from Sam, just that first try. I mean, don't try a crossfit kick on your own 22, mate. You're a test player. Don't do it. Um,
Like,
Yeah, look, I hope it's only a one-off. I genuinely do because I don't want to see Leinster come bottom. I want to see them in the Challenge Cup at least. But look, it can
Bottom
only
spot
get
does get
better.
the Challenge Cup. I should let you know of that.
yeah.
But
It
just
should
kind
get
of on
better.
that. Yeah, but just kind of on that, like, and Adam, I'll throw this one to you. How much stock would you put in on it's just one game, and how much would you kind of say of, look, there is worrying signs here because they lost to Cardiff in pre-season as well as that, and
Yeah.
like they're gonna have at least another 2 weeks without their first choice, like their Lions. Osborne's out for a few weeks. McCarthy, Keenan's out for a few weeks as well. There could be more lads who are rusty or who may only have like a half in them against Munster and Croke Park for that return game. Like I'm not putting
It,
pressure on them to
I,
win this weekend. I actually would have budged them to only get maybe 4 points. They'll pick it up somewhere else. But it's just such a weird position to be in because like it's Leinster and that's the bit I can't get my head around.
Yeah, it like their back line was a full Irish capped back line. Not many provincial teams can say that they have a second string with Sam Prendergast who started the Six Nations all the way through. You had Jordan Larmour like who was Ireland stalwart a couple of years ago. Frawley who did the drop goal against South Africa 2 seasons ago. There is something really weird going on there. Maybe it's the air miles, maybe they'll put it down to the air miles, but I say it's going to be a real test of where they are as a squad and where something's gone horrifically wrong is their reply this Saturday or Friday, with their reply against the Bulls. If they lose against this Bulls team who got, I think, was it 40 or 30 points put on them against from the Ospreys point of view, the Ospreys tore them apart. I knew they still won, but they still scored 30 odd points against them. This Leinster squad, in theory, should do the same. Do you know what I mean? They could do the same. They've got the team there. They've got the players. Their bench as well. Like you would argue like Max Deegan, Will Connors, you have those players that were in and out of Ireland squads for years. They've got the experience, but something just didn't go right. And I don't know if it's going to be one of those that, as you said, Cardiff happened, this has happened. If they lose again against the Bulls, what does that mean for their season? How can they go in and attack this season? Because you've got Glasgow who can now go on a couple of runs a game, like a push on for games. You've got Munster that can push on a couple of games. That Leinster need that home quarter-final, home semi-final spot, and it's the start of the season, and we might be getting a bit too ahead of ourselves, but it's just bizarre for Leinster, to even get nilled, as we said.
Like you're not wrong because like we said last week, Leinster always do they build up the points for Europe starts, they run, they build them up. Glasgow could now very easily go and do that.
Yeah.
Nail down top spot before Europe gets going. And then what do you do?
And you just kind of you run through that Leinster team and like I'm just gonna make this a little bit smaller here. Like international capped front row, second row, fair enough, not. Ryan Baird, who many people, whether you agreed with it or not, many people thought he should have been on the Lions tour. I know he's got up against like Ben Jason Dixon and Evan Roos, who are test quality as well. But you've got Luke McGrath, Ireland cap, Sam Prendergast. I think did you say every single one of them? Yeah, every single one of them
Yeah,
Yeah,
has
every single one
has
of them, yeah.
played for Ireland. Like even the bench, I know Paddy McCarthy and Andrew Sparrow are not quite there yet in terms of the trajectory of their career, but it's a pretty strong squad. And then you
that's
kind
an
of
Irish capped 17, 18, 19, or 19, 20, 21, 22, 23.
yeah.
Like outside of the front row. It's a fully test back line on that
But then
bench.
you flip it around and it's like, well, they got out metered, out team breaks, out defenders beaten, territory. Their missed tackles, 25 missed tackles.
25, yeah.
Like it's all very un-Leinster like, and you just keep going down. And I think this one here, kicking success zero, it's not because someone had an off day. They didn't elect to go for the post. And Ben,
Yeah.
that has to be a question mark as well, because eventually you have to take one of those opportunities. And you would say it yourself, having watched Munster last year and how they'd consistently go for the corner. It's what the metrics say. I understand that. But when you're not getting any change at line out time, surely you take the post. And you got Sam Prendergast there. He's a more than competent kicker. You got Kieran Foley at 12, even if Sam had a knock. I don't think he did or anything. Like, sure you take the points.
your pack is being decimated. Your set piece is falling apart. You're not making any ground with ball in hand, realistically. Not on any player. You're just not. You have Prendergast, Frawley, and Byrne all in that squad. Like, we complained about Munster doing it last year. Leinster have done it in big game after big game, and they have lost big games because of not taking 3 points. That's a hill I will die on. They win that Champions Cup final in Spurs if they take their threes. Um, Even at 16-0 down that they were on Friday night, they had a kickable penalty, went for the corner, and the line-out malfunctioned again. You have to take your threes at some point. Rugby's a very simple game. If you're 16-0 down, you're not getting any change. The best thing about Sam is off tee. Use him.
Yeah.
You have him. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know what the plan was from the Leinster coaches, any of them. Whether they underestimated the Stormers or they thought without the rugby championship players they'd be able to just go down and win regardless. But it's should they lose again on Saturday, it doesn't get any easier. That's Sharks and Munster are tough.
They're going to be licking their
So,
lips, aren't they? And I think the one thing is, even if Leinster lose this weekend, everyone is going to tip them to win those two games and to end this opening block with 5 wins, 2 losses, just those
mhm.
2 games. But it lingers. And we've seen that before. Less so with Leinster, because I think to their credit, when they've lost in the URC last season, you think of that Scarlets game, they didn't let it linger. They didn't sit in it. They didn't let it sit there and annoy them. Yes, their performances got a bit poor across the back end of the season, and that was in the back. That was in the final third of the season, the final block of games. But they didn't let it sit there. And it's important for them not to, because as much as we talk about like international caps, whatever, it's not like you have all your leaders there. They don't have a Reece Ruddock there anymore, for example, and he's always the one we used to mention. They don't have someone like that. You know, they're Gus McCarthy. Yes, he's in Ireland cap. Yes, he's an 120 international. He's still very new to these kind of pro games, and like, yes, they'll probably face a tougher opposition this weekend. We'll touch on about that a little bit later on. But I do think this is the type of season for Leinster because history repeats itself. This bulk supplier of the Lions will often, and I've seen that, the
Yeah.
bulk supplier of the Lions will often go through some tough patches. It's just what happens. Whether it's you can say it's unfair, you can say it's unjust, you can say it's, it won't happen this time because they're superior S&C or whatever it might be. But it does happen. And then you factor in the fact that we've played 80 minutes of URC rugby and before a ball was even kicked, there was rumours of Stuart Lancaster trying to sign a couple of Connacht players for either mid-season or next season, which we all predicted. Don't get me wrong, we all predicted that that was going to happen, but those rumours are already out there. So it is definitely a case, and I don't think Leo Cullen's under pressure. I don't think Jack Nienaber's under pressure,
No.
but it just adds a little bit of something, which is great if you're going to be doing a weekly podcast, because Leinster,
Yeah.
with the greatest respect in the world, they are a boring team to cover. Because they go out, they win, they get a bonus point, they go again next week, they rotate, they still win, they get a bonus point. It's the same cycle. Maybe this year, Leinster are going to be one of the most interesting teams. And that to me is really, really fun. Adam.
Yeah. It is like it's really fun to think because every week we can't be talking about how like good Leinster are. Like last week's sort of podcast reviewing Leinster, we were like, what ones do they lose instead of what ones do they win? We predicted them for like at least one trophy this season. It is a really going to be a really interesting season if Leinster can find that rhythm, which I'm sure they will. They've got those Lions coming in, but as we said about like building points, Stormers built points from the first minute right up until the 45th minute, and then that's when Leinster started to like panic and substitute everyone. It's a weird sort of tactic, but as we say, it's Leinster. They will bounce back. I think having a South African tour at the start of the season, especially after, as you said, being the bulk of the Lions, it's a tough task. But with a team like that, they really should be getting more out of this.
And to kind of like take things back to us for a second, we'll move on in a minute. None of you laughed at me when I tipped Leinster. You all said
Nope.
Stormers, but Stormers
Yeah,
by 7 points. None of you laughed. Like,
yeah,
it was not
no,
unfeasible. I
Like
thought
I
Leinster
said,
would win
Leinster could
this.
get a try bonus point. I
yeah,
legitimately thought they'd get
You thought
one,
you
if
get
not two
two
points.
bonus points, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
know? And
I
like
said,
that's the thing where it's like, oh, like maybe, that So maybe we look terrible, but to be fair, like two lads went 4-0 this week, so we're not that bad at predictions. But it's like, no, you wouldn't have been surprised if Leinster won this game. And you can't say it's because, oh, they have a bad record in South Africa, because I do believe, and maybe this is arrogance or naivety, and if we've South African fans in our mentions, absolutely tell us if you think this. I thought Leinster had a better 15 on paper.
Yep.
Bench, maybe not.
Yeah,
I did have concerns, but I did think they had a better 15 on paper, and I
yeah.
do think it'll be interesting. And just to kind of final word for yourself, Ben, like again, don't need to go into the nitty gritty, but maybe just really quickly on the Stormers, that was impressive because they
Yeah.
still have Sasha and Damien Phillips to come back in. And Adam, you'll know this from being on the United Rugby Rewind with Hugh and myself, having been on those shows as well. He is a firm believer that they are the guys who set the Stormers ceiling. They are the Stormers. So to get a win like this is not bad. Like it's if you talk about differentials, like this is like 6 points game nearly.
Yeah, like if we're taking the Leinsterness out of it, that was an incredibly impressive performance by what is
Yeah.
in essence the second string Stormers team. They have big players to come in. Evan Roos, who takes pelters sometimes for not being as good as we all think he is, was incredible. 11-15 tore Leinster to pieces without. Well, they got a lot of ball, fine, but they made space. They made Leinster's backline look sloppy, which doesn't happen. It's a big game for Stormers this weekend. If they can back that up again, you're then looking, are they back to where they were when Munster got to that final in Cape Town, when Stormers looked impenetrable for most of that season? I know Leinster won the league that year and whatnot, but Stormers still, no one wanted to go to Cape Town. Last year, there were teams saying Cape Town isn't exactly the toughest place to go. We have to go to Loftus afterwards, but fine, we can do Cape Town. They looked very good. And like, it's to go back to your point on who we predicted. Leinster should have won on Saturday. Let's
Yeah.
let's not sugarcoat that for a second. Over 80 minutes and based on two teams, Leinster should have won that game and come out with 4 points. It's a credit to the Stormers that they didn't, but Leinster should have 4 points going into Saturday,
Yeah,
realistically.
I do think it's like a lot of it is like us knowing how good Leinster are, but also it's like that it's that expectation, as we said, it's complete expectation now that they don't lose games like that at all. As we said, it's like 18 years in the league. They've sort of shushed that away from themselves because of how good they are. So I just find it so interesting how they're going to reply to this now. And they have to reply. If they don't, it's going to be another confusing podcast next week where we're going to have to be like, what happens now?
Yeah.
Like we're probably next week again looking at game at weekend being Bulls Leinster because it should be the game everyone watches.
Yeah, I
You
mean it's a
know,
repeat of the final ultimately, even though it's not going to feel like it because South Africa are playing the same day. Leinster will have their lines. I know it's not going to feel the same, but it is a repeat of the final.
they've had to fly out David. That's why he's not on the podcast to be a motivational speaker for the boys.
That's
So
not fully confirmed yet. We have to wait till Leo Cullen's squad update to confirm that. We're that's not our position. Do you know what I mean?
he's going in the Leo the Leinster Lion costume. That's
When
amazing.
Oh
Kieran
God.
Frawley starts, we know he's down there. When Frawley
Yeah.
starts at 10,
Yeah, to
that's
be fair,
entirely David's doing.
David is a big Kieran Frawley fan, which I understand. I'm not
Oh
I'm
yeah.
not as high on him, but I do think he's a good player.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see how this evolution of Leinster goes because it is going to be interesting to follow because ultimately that Lions factor is an intangible that may not get mentioned, but it may be slowly at first and then all of a sudden at the end type thing that could creep up on them. But moving on, we're going to go from wonderful, glamorous, sunny Cape Town to a wet West Wales because moving on to Cletley, Munster, as David can let you know there by his reactions if you're on YouTube,
Then
got the win over the Clentley Scarlets. Slate McMillan's era off to a dream start thanks to a convincing 34-21 bonus point win on Welsh soil. And Ben, I'm fresh after recording another podcast, if we've any Munster fans out there, called the Red Army Podcast, which is definitely more unhinged than this one, it is fair to say, and we are fairly unhinged at the best of times. But I think the main takeaway from that was if Munster said we want to raise our floor, they've made a pretty good start at it, because that's what this felt like.
yep. It was the performance that I think we were all crying out for when we did that preview pod. It was a performance after that back preseason game. We knew this team had in him. Every single part of it clicked for a full hour of that game. Packed it superbly. Mike Haley looked as good as he has looked in years in that 15 shirt, to the point that I'd play him again this weekend. McMillan's entire system of we are going to run through you. We don't care how big you are. That we're scoring and we're going over there looked incredible. We kicked really smartly. We, to touch back for a second, took our trees, which we haven't done in I don't know how many years. It was you could not have asked for more. Again, I'm sure you'll agree with me on this, but we could not have asked for any more from Munster POV. There were subs. It got a bit janky. Fine, it's game one. It's going to get a bit janky. Scored
Mhm.
34 points. Could have scored more. Dan Kelly looks exactly the player that Caolán, you said in the preview he is, where he just came in, ran that back line. JJ before he got his HA looked as again looked like the player that left Munster, looked the player Connacht wanted to have. Yeah, I dream start, only way to put it. Absolute dream start.
Yeah, no, it really is. And Adam, like, I'd love to ask you about your kind of thoughts on taking the three and all that again, but oh, sorry, that's playing the sound. I don't want to kind of, go over that over and over again. Here is the Dan Kelly try on highlights. Highlights can be hard to find on Twitter at the best of times. But as Munster kind of said themselves, they wanted to raise their floor. This was a game that a lot of teams slip up in. Do you know? This is a
Yeah.
game where you often, you go to Connectly or you go to wherever and you don't get the full points. Maybe you only take a losing bonus point, but you take it. But this was decent. This is a good start for Munster.
It's like the best start you could have wished for. I said in our the other podcast, the Global Game I do United Rewind, I say that we like Ulster ourselves. We've struggled. Scarlets away the first game of the season. It's a tough place to go. I think it's absolute. I think it's a testament to Munster how well you've played, getting the 34 points away to Scarlets, because at the end of the day, like you've had a new coach in, you've got a couple of new players. I must say, I really like the look of Dan Kelly. I think he's a really classy operator. And I also think that JJ Hanrahan is the player that he's needed out of Billy Burns that you didn't quite get. He's JJ Hanrahan's going to be perfect in that second role for fly half for Munster. He's came round seasoned. He's been around. I was going to say the world there. It's been what Claremont and Dragons and
And,
Northampton
and Northampton between his first
and
and second
Northampton.
Munster
Yeah,
stint.
but he's the player that you need now. He's like the seasoned sort of veteran, if you can call him that. I think he's 33, but he's the seasoned player that you need in that 10 jersey to be coming on to play these games when Crawley's out with Ireland, and you're in that middle weird bit, or in November as well. I think he's played really well. I think Craig Casey as well. You couldn't really fault him at all. It was a strong lineup for Munster that he's had starting as well. Like, we say about Leinster not having all their lions, but I'd say you were just missing Byrne, weren't you? In terms of like
Byrne, Tom
lions.
Farrell, John Hodnett, Jimmy Caolán, Michael Milne.
Look, in
That's
terms of
But
a team you could see playing against Castres, playing down in Cork, it wasn't miles off. You put in
oh
Hodnett and
no,
Ahern, and then you're
I
yeah,
I really I really like that Nankivell Kelly center partnership as
yeah.
well. I'm a sucker for a good center partnership. I think that backline worked so well in general as well. Like, on paper I saw it and went that's gonna work nicely, and then when I watched it as well, it just worked really nicely as well. But as I said, it's a tough game to play, and Scarlets did score three tries, so you can only play as well as your opponent, and they put in a pretty good shift, but at the end of the day, you've got the bonus point. You turn them over, and that's a really good start for your season ahead.
Yeah, well, that's it. And like I was impressed with Munster, and it's not a case of, and people will always go to that whole thing of like, oh, you've got leniency to this team or this team or this team. I was most impressed with Munster and Connacht this weekend. Somewhat naturally, we got on to Ulster towards the end of the show, but I think where Munster kind of stood out most was that was the bones of the first choice Scarlets team, bar two or three injuries. They were a playoff team last year. They turned over Leinster at home last year with a very similar looking team. It was a greasy ball, it was a greasy day. And if you base that game on the first 60 minutes, I know it kind of tapered off and lost a bit of intensity at the end, as most games do. Munster just kept them at arm's length for most of that period. Like they were really, really good at that. And I think that's Again, something that Munster would need to have worked on last year, where they just let teams back into games. Connacht it happened with twice last year. Ulster it happened with last year.
Yeah.
That's just Interpro examples. But Ben, and I'd love to talk about Dan Kelly on and on because I thought he was excellent. But in that pack, and I mentioned this on the other show, I thought Ollie Jaeger was excellent. A man I didn't get to mention on the other show was Brian Gleeson, who was really good, had that incredible carry that I'll try and pull up here in a minute. But on that pack and that directness and that kind of I don't know what Lee's stance is on swearing, but that cuntishness, and apologies if he has to bleep that one out, but it's just that feeling of I'm just going to run over you, and like that is something that Munster have been really bad at in the last few years. They haven't been direct enough, and their best rugby has often been when they were direct, and this is an example of the latter.
Like Gleeson, anytime he got the ball, it was CJ Stander-esque of him just barreling through people. Jean Klein, again, the C word you use is a perfect description of his near hour on the pitch. Finian Wycherley, can't see any more about him. He was superb. Our front row, Niall Scannell for his 200 cap, did his job perfectly. Line out functioned. They were easy calls. It was perfect. He had a lovely platform to work off underneath him. Can't really ask for much more from him. I'm excited to see this pack and looking forward. If we can get a dog boat in there to replace Klein as well. Oh boy. Oh boy. A slight word for Jack O'Donoghue, and I don't know, I'm sure people have seen the clip, but that tackle he makes to stop what is a certain Scarlet's try changes the entire game.
Yeah.
Scarlets get after within a score. It is superb, and it's not getting mentioned enough because of how well Gleeson carried, as it should be, and how well Craig played. But O'Donoghue's tackle, ooh. A slight word, I know we're on the pack, but just Takir Abrahams, just he was so close on like 4 occasions to scoring.
Yeah,
uh,
that's true.
I don't think he got as much love because Haley had a cracking game, but he deserves just a little piece.
Ah, no, he absolutely does. I thought he looked really good for Munster. Once again, I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties. I tried to screen share the Brian Gleeson run and it just decided, you know what, you're not allowed. So I'm just trying to get that sorted here.
He had smaller ones outsiders where he was running into props and just barreling them out of the way.
Mm,
It was a mean streak, and we haven't had a mean streak in this Munster team outside of Interpros for a very long time.
no,
And if we can keep
absolutely
that
not.
going, hey, world's your oyster at that point.
And here is that clip, and I'll just unwind it there a small bit. Like Gleeson was absolutely excellent. I mentioned Jaeger, Klein was very good. But it's just that idea of players stepping up to the mantle. Yeah, we could talk about Craig Casey for a long time, and we will across the season because he sets Munster's floor and ceiling, I believe. I think he's
Yeah,
the most important player in that Munster squad. Don't know if we got into it in too much detail that night, previewing them, but he is that caliber, and I think this is a very important win for them. And Adam, like you go into next week, it's Cardiff, and like ultimately, Munster's next 3 games are against teams they lost to last season. Do you know, like they lost to Cardiff, they lost to Edinburgh, they lost to Leinster twice. This will be a very good stretch to sell where Munster are, and we mentioned it as well. None of those games on on an individual basis are overly tough. The Leinster game, yes, it is tricky, don't get me wrong, but it's an Interpro, it's a life of its own, to use that cliche. But if Munster can just show that that floor of theirs is rising, then I think the likes of Ben and others will be very, very happy.
Yeah, it's it's getting those sort of I feel like with the Welsh teams at the minute, it's really hard to explain what they're going through at the minute and what the players might be going through. I feel like we're going to touch on that a lot when we have the provincial teams playing. But it's that sort of chip on their shoulder feeling to them at the minute, which they're going out and they don't know if they're going to play next year. They don't know where they're going to play next year. So it's always going to be a wild card for me viewing Welsh teams. They can go either really well or really bad. But I feel like I feel like Munster v Cardiff, I feel like you can easily sort of topple them over. As for Edinburgh, they're an interesting case in themselves as got beat to Zebra. I'd see that you will probably see a much more Edinburgh side that we know of this week when we play them in Edinburgh ourselves for Ulster. So we don't really know the sort of the beast that we could see. It's their reply from what we have seen so far. And I think that weekend of URC was probably the most chaotic weekend. Every win was a bonus point, one away win, and that was a bonus point. You had Leinster getting nilled, Zebra winning one of their games. Zebra could win next week as well. I'm sorry that I'm getting onto that, but it is gonna be a really tight season again, and I'm all here for it.
Yeah, and well, ultimately, like that's an absolutely fair point because ultimately that's where a win like this becomes important.
Yeah,
Because Munster lost games like this last season, Ulster lost games like this last season,
yeah.
and I know Ulster didn't necessarily lose to the Dragons last year, but performances like that just showing that like your base level has improved. It does become important. And Ben, just kind of give you a closing word because Munster, this was a strong Munster team. But they've had stronger. They could very well have Jack Crowley start this weekend, Calvin Nash come back in. They could have potentially Edwin Adogbo is kind of what we're hearing. He's thereabouts for the next couple of weeks to come back in. They've Roman Salnoa, Michael Mill potentially, obviously Tyg Byrne, Gavin Coombs and Tom Hearn on the bench. Like it's that it's a very weird feeling for Munster fans to say we could rotate this week.
it it's been so long to be able to be like we actually have depth. Like Jack can start the game, build up his minutes, rest again till after Leinster. You're right. I would expect Mill to probably come in. Coombs and Hodnett, they should probably come in as well. If we can get Edwin 20 minutes on Saturday, hoping he can just get on the pitch and get some minutes under him, you're then looking at. We've gone through depth RPC, but you're looking at a pack that can handle any pack in URC, and we can rotate out for games that we should be winning. We'll get onto it, but I mean, it's hard to see. It's hard to see past a Munster BP win this weekend. I know we'll get there. Adam does make a good point regarding the Welsh teams, though, that like it it is quite sad to be here and say Munster battered Scarlets at home. We should probably be battering Cardiff. Do the Welsh sides, would any of their players, like, would you give out if any of them are like, nah, F this, we might not have a club in 2 years? I mean,
They
I don't
performed
know are
though.
they the best barometer at the moment. I know Munster lost to two of
Yeah.
them last year, and it's great to
But
get the wins, but
they performed. I think that's the important thing for them. Like they actually did pitch up. I thought the Scarlets were really good. I didn't see the Ospreys game. I actually thought the Dragons were good for maybe half an hour and then they faded off, which you kind of expect from them.
Scarlet's set
Um,
piece was incredibly impressive.
yeah, and it
Once
always
Scarlets
is.
got going, they were very.
And
It was worrying.
Cardiff won at the weekend, so like they're in that weird position, and obviously, like it goes without saying, like we hope that Welsh Rugby finds a solution that is best for everyone and not just best for a few people, which is what they're chasing at the moment. But you know, I do hope we find that route. But I also am confident that they will still produce performances. I really, really am. I am confident that they will. But we'll kind of end on Munster. Actually, no, I had one more thing I was going to mention because you mentioned their depth, and it came up in a podcast I was listening to during the week about, yeah, people are positive, but yeah, this and that, and the kind of takeaways is why you shouldn't be. A point that was made was that Munster's depth has gotten weaker, and they don't have the depth, and that's I can understand talking about say, yeah, nine might be an issue because Conor Murray's gone, and obviously Peter Mahoney's not there anymore. Roy Scannell was serviceable, Stephen Archer too, but like. They've signed Michael Mill, Lee Barron, signed Dan Kelly. These guys aren't certain starters. Like, would you say,
No.
would you, based off your face or anyone who's not watching this on YouTube, you don't agree, but it kind of feels like that's an incorrect view on Munster. Even if maybe they're top end, maybe you can question that. But I don't think you can question their depth, can you?
No, we have like nine. Nine's one position you could maybe question, but nine's an issue at all four provinces. We
Mhm.
all have a
Well,
starting nine. Every province has a backup nine,
I think
and there's a
Connacht is the
fight for that
healthiest.
slot. Connacht have the healthiest nine back.
Yeah.
Um, we have two very good tens with a then a fight for that third jersey. Centre we have Stacks. Back row we have Stacks. Our prop and the experience is gone. We've lost a man. We've lost Archer. No one debates leadership is there. But I mean, we're only saying Millen could come in this weekend. Lee Barron could come back this weekend and get a start. Salanoa, Ryan, Munster for the first time in years have actual depth and can actually rotate. Um, I, I really, really don't see how anyone could look at Munster's depth chart and say that's a problem.
Well, there'll always be takes like that.
I've no doubt someone will. I've no doubt there'll be articles about it whenever we lose a game that the depth chart is awful. But
Yeah.
reams and reams of depth there.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And look, we'll park the URC for just a split minute because we're going to just move on to the community game. I almost said community games. That's a very different thing. But the community game, because the AIL returned this weekend. We're going to start with the women's division. It is the hot topic at the moment, of course, the women's game in Ireland. And surprisingly, the top side are Wicklow after a 44-0 win over Cook, in which Ireland winger Vicky Ellis-Kinlan scored a brace of tries. Ben, I know your home club of UL Bows are the reigning AIL champions, and they had a big win. Well, a big win, not in terms of size of victory, but they defeated
No, in
Blackrock.
terms of standing, it was an excellent win.
In terms of
Um,
standing, the likes of Maeve O'Leary and that Blackrock side, that game was played in Stradbrook. While, and this is kind of the first talking point I want to take away from this. Ennis secured their first top flight win on the road against Tullow. That to me, like, I understand there's a big gap between say seventh in the women's AIL and third. But to see the likes of Ennis come in there, they've qualified on their own bat, they've lost players, but they're still there. Like these are the stories that if Irish women's rugby is going to succeed, we want more Ennis, more Tullow, more clubs like that being the ones to kick on her, don't we? That's for you, Ben. Sorry.
yes, oh my apologies. Yes, we do. And like, look, the women's game. Look, it needs more clubs. It needs more clubs at this level. You have your Bows, your Railway, your Wicklow's, your Cooks, fine. But to see clubs like Ennis manage to step up, and they probably won't challenge come the end of the season. But if we can get another Munster club in, Ennis step up, there's clubs, particularly in Limerick, that don't run out women's teams at any level in the AIL. And if Ennis can be an example of it, this is what happens when you go from 0 to 50. You can get into this division, you can compete. You can do they had a cracking win the weekend. Like they played incredibly well. Tullow are a decent outfit. Yeah,
Yeah, no, you'd
more to go.
absolutely take it. And just kind of moving over to the men's side of things in Division 1A, it's first blood to St. Mary's after a win over Clontarf. That was a bit of a surprise. That was a strong Clontarf side, the likes of Alex Usinoff, Ben Griffin, Dylan Donlan, and Niall Smith all involved. That's just their front five. But that's just their front row, I should say.
That
Like
Clontarf team is terrifying.
that it's a very good Clontarf team. They have to be one of the favourites. Game of the week has to be the win of Ballynahinch over Young Munster, 35-33. Adam, I understand you probably didn't get to catch this one, but Ballynahinch, a great club. They were in smooth sailing at one stage in this game, and they almost let it slip. But again, that's a tough place to go up and win, isn't it?
Yeah, I've had experiences with Hinch playing underage rugby. I don't think I've ever lost against Hinch now that I think about it, playing underage rugby,
That's a
which is
great brag to have because you're one of the few people in Ireland, I think.
I
Yeah,
I've played away to Hinch under 16s and we beat them as well. We were a dogged Carrick-Fergus team, I must say. Um, but yeah, Hinch are a great club. They're a huge club. I don't know if you've ever visited Hinch, but it just seems like there's just pitches upon pitches upon pitches. They've got loads of teams. It seems like it's a really nice club as well. Like every time that I went down when I played underage rugby, from under 13, well under 11s to under 18s, it's always been a nice welcoming club as well. So it's good to see them getting a big win out of that.
I had half hatched a plan to go up on Saturday to see the cookies. I didn't, thankfully. I only saw the last. I went to see Leonardo DiCaprio instead, but I only saw the last 10 minutes of the game. I saw Cookies kick to potentially win it. That he seemed to slice, but from what I've read, they came back incredibly well.
Yeah,
And it's
they
just
did.
it's a game that Cookies would have targeted to probably get a win out of. Like they're looking
Yeah.
looking for playoffs.
But
Maybe not
yeah, I
win,
suppose
but
Munsters
with
are
how the
looking for
game
playoffs, aren't they?
went, you're a little bit like they could have won it last 20 minutes, probably should have won it.
Mm.
But
But it's that weird one, isn't it? Because Ballynahinch is just such a tough place to go and
yeah,
Yeah.
to win a rugby game. And like even you
Yeah.
look at the quality that they had on offer and that is their starting side. Like sorry, the James Humphreys on the bench first of all, but they had
Yeah.
Conor Rankin, Ethan Graham, Aaron Sexton, all Ulster players or past Ulster players all involved. They had Bryn Ward, Zach McCall, and Marcus Ray as their back row.
Yeah.
Like very dynamic, very tough. And I think that's going to be a
big rugby
theme that we would go
skills.
through some of these sides. There's a lot of quality in AIL, and I always
I
implore people to go out and watch it. I watched the Nina game the other day. Um, Maybe not the highest quality fixture. I thought there was a little bit of early season ring rust, which is normal, but fantastic stuff, across the board. St. Mary's top now. They'll be kicking themselves they didn't get to a final last year in the most horrible of conditions on semi-final weekend. Going down to Division 1B, Estonians, now spearheaded by Ian Whitten and Craig Gilroy, both in that side. They're top of Division 1B after a bonus point win over Naas. And I think it's fair to say Estonians are going to be a team we're going to mention a lot this year. They have just gone up and up and up and up, and it is phenomenal. We haven't even mentioned the likes of Turnure and their big project that's happening now with King Carlos that that's going to have to get a mention later down the line. I'll come back to you, Adam, on Estonians in just a minute.
Yeah.
Just to kind of finish it off, Galway club's Corinthians, who just missed out on playoffs last year. I think that the most amount of wins without making the playoffs last year across all five divisions. So they're going to be really pushing, but they've lost players because they are 2A and they've lost a couple of players who were ceded the contract to Connacht. Galwegians also lead the way in 2B after a win over rivals Buccaneers, while newly promoted Thomond RFC got an opening day win in 2C. Adam, just to quickly bounce back to Estonians, a club we're going to mention a lot. If they go up to 1A this year, it will be promotion after promotion after promotion
Yeah.
from their brief stint in junior rugby. It could be one of the great stories in AIL rugby of this century.
Yeah, I have to say, they're another team that I've came across as well, playing underage rugby, and they've really focused on. Well, they've got Inst Rugby Club and Inst the grammar school, so I have to make that like aware. Like they've got loads of players coming from that grammar school that are getting into the team as well, that aren't necessarily getting into Ulster teams. But the likes of like Ian Whitten and Craig Gilroy playing for them, and also they have a good squad in themselves. It's only a testament to how much they've been building rugby in the past couple of years. Because I remember them being like when we used to play them, because I used to play like under 18s for, well, as I said, for like Carrick Rugby Club, and we used to play against Inst all the time. And it was one of those where under 15s we were noticed that they were quite a weak team, but then since then it's just been built upon built upon built. I think Louis Ludic's the coach.
Or
Louis
at least
Ludic's
he
one of
was
the
anyway, but yeah.
yeah, he was one of the coaches anyway, but they've invested really big in it. I think Shalk van der Merwe, of former Ulster fame, I think he only has two caps, but he's a South African tight head that also is playing AIL rugby for them as well. I think Ulster at the minute, they're like all the Ulster teams anyway are heavily investing in it. Ballyclare are in the AIL as well. That's another team that are quite interesting to watch as well, to see their rise. Another team that I've also got experiences playing rugby against. I didn't go to a grammar school, so I played all these clubs going up. But it's really interesting to see like meteoric rises out of these clubs in Ulster, and growing the club game in Ulster is only going to make the province stronger in the main run, in the long run anyway, which is good to
Yeah,
see.
Like if Ulster can
definitely.
get that pack going from what is an incredibly strong AIL group up to the academy, up to the senior team, that's incredible. Um,
Yeah.
and
That's
like
the aim for everyone, isn't it?
that is, but like Estonians' rise has just been meteoric's the right word to use. You'd love to see him get up again. Just get one more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Even if it does fall flat. Now I know there's reasons why they've been able to climb all the rankings, but like to be able to bring in someone like Craig Gilroy, there is a rule, and it's important. Some people may not know this. There is a rule that once you stop playing professional rugby, you can only go down a certain amount of levels. So he's gone into 1B. It would have been fine. He could play 1B, 1A because he only retired. When did he retire? 2 years ago. So
Yeah.
he actually could have went down to Division 2. Got signed by them. He actually scored at the weekend. I went in and checked. He was actually on the score sheet for them, which is really cool on debut. But if they go up again and you have like so many storylines, this is the thing, right? Because you have Cork on, who've picked off two of the last three titles or two in a row, something like that, with a mix of proper AIL men mixed with like some Munster Academy. You'll have Turnure and the Carlos Spencer. And yes, I'll let you in a second, don't get me wrong. You'll
So
have the
so
likes of Ballyhinch, your Munsters already. You'll have an Estonians and this rise through the ranks. I think there's a lot of really cool storylines in AIL this year that we're going to follow up. But Adam, before you burst at the seams. What are you going to tell me about Instonians?
One Inst anecdote is the only time I played scrum half. Was against Inst at Inst, and I rolled my ankle and still played the entire game with one ankle. We lost the game, but yeah, that's my Inst anecdote. There we go.
Moving swiftly along from that anecdote. You're a tough man, Adam. We'll give you a medal. It'll be
I
in the
know.
We
post.
got an
I'm paying.
anecdote. We got Ulster
I'm,
players. It's the dream.
I,
It's
I,
more than most Irish rugby podcasts just because we mentioned Ulster. But we're going to move on to a side who are going to get a lot of airtime this year. And don't get me wrong, as a going man, great to see Connacht getting airtime. It shouldn't take Stuart Lancaster coming in for them to get their fair share of airtime, but that's an entirely different discussion. But Connacht got their season after Dream start as well, 26-15 win over Benetton. I wasn't covering this, but I did have a strong eye on it. I'll kind of start things off here as the resident Connacht man in the room. This was again similar to Munster. If this is your floor, this is really, really good position to be in because you look at that starting team. They had Joe Joyce, Keane Prendergast, Jack Carthy, who I think will feature a lot this year, all on the bench. Dave Heffernan on the bench. Mac Bundy not involved. No Jack Ainger. You know, this was a pretty rotated Connacht team against a strong Benetton side.
yeah.
Benetton weren't in this game. Just call a spade a spade. They were not in this game. This was Connacht from minute one. It was super impressive. Ioane got things off to a fast start. I thought he was good until he came off, but Jack Carthy played really well. Sean Nocton was really tidy at full back. Had heard that flagged over the summer. Didn't know whether to believe it. I thought, they sure they're not on about Harry West. I thought they were moving Harry West to 15 kind of thing. But he looked decent. Thought Call Ford looked good. And I think one of the big takeaways from this one was just how, and I'm not going to use the C word again, but just how tough that Connacht pack was. Because we haven't seen it a lot. They have looked undersized. I actually thought that back row they selected was a little bit undersized with Boyle, Hurley, Langton, and Jansen. Didn't look it. Looked anything but. Elo, a monster at front row. Thought they were really, really good. And against Benetton side, who did lay it into them. Yes, they crossed the line a few times and they were deserving of their cards and different things. But this was pretty good from Connacht. And Ben, I know you kind of kept an eye on this one for us. Like it was, I know the sports guy's a tough place to go. I know all that. I know there's the Lancaster factor we'll get onto in a second. Just a pretty, pretty good Connacht performance where they got the win. No ifs and buts, just done. Happy out.
Yep, Connacht, they almost made it look easy in times in that game. It was very much, we're at home. We are a well-drilled team. We are going to put you away. Benetton gave away a couple of really stupid yellow cards. But I don't like mentioning Lancaster, but Connacht looked incredibly well-drilled. They fronted up. They looked at times like a Lancaster pack to, a Lancaster pack we've seen previously, where like Niall Murray was incredible. Elo, as you said, Caolán, Elo was superb. Their back three, while being on the small side, again, they carried like men double their size. Their set piece worked remarkably well.
And
Um,
can I just jump in there? It was the movement that I
yep,
think showed because they weren't as static. They weren't, and a lot was said by Bernard Jackman and others about how Connacht, that every bit of training they did all summer was with a ball. And
yep,
it showed. And I think that's something that we did see a bit from Munster in the last few years because they would have taken a similar approach, but it showed. They were running onto rucks. They had clean ruck ball. They were winning collisions. They were winning the defensive line. And it just all flowed from there. They're going to be a force if they play like that, aren't they, Ben?
but like I've been critical of Josh Ioane. I think in our preview, I was like, I don't see why he's as high as he should be. He looked superb on Saturday. Like
Yeah.
everything. I know he didn't get the full game, but everything he touched, set up the entire back run to run onto him. Little pop passes he was doing were superb, combined with ruck speed. That I don't know if we have the speed, but if you looked at Connacht's ruck speed, I'd say it was one of the highest in URC. That ball was
Oh,
being recycled immediately. Um, they looked as good as they've looked for a very long time. And
they
like
did.
again, I said it, Jordan. I don't like using the caveat of Treviso were incredibly indisciplined. They were. Scarlets will give them a sterner test this weekend, but for the early days of Lancaster ball, can't have any complaints for a Connacht fan, can you?
No, you really can't. And like, if we're going to talk about Leinster missing 20 tackles, Connacht missed 20 tackles. This was a very high ball and playtime type game. I don't have the exact figure on that either. I think it may have been said in the 42 or one of those, but it was a pretty high ball and playtime type game. But Connacht they just looked resolute. They kicked the leather off the ball as well, which I didn't realize. I knew they had a high kicking game. Nearly a kilometer of kicking in any game is a lot. They
Like
kick
nearly
deep.
60 kicks in play over the game in general is an awful lot for a style of rugby that Connacht usually play.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
a sea change from what they used to do.
And
It's
it's
excellent.
the right way to go, isn't it? Like they two line out steals as well. I don't know exactly. Probably both from Niall Murray. Niall Murray probably hit three. They probably take one off him. He's just that good in the air. He's someone I actually would have said Munster should have been looking at last year, to be honest. Um, but just a really impressive performance. And Adam, like a good point to kind of jump onto there is what Ben said about like a sea change from Connacht. This massive amount of kicking, massive amount of on your feet time. Like they're kind of evolving, but evolving quickly, and I think that's really exciting. And like, yes, Lancaster will take out the headlines. It'll be Lancaster this, Lancaster that. But in terms of just what we're seeing with Rob Saib and other coaches in there, it's pretty exciting.
It is, and I think to add on to Ben's comment about Josh Awoni, I think it suited his game immensely, and you can see how comfortable he was playing it as well. I thought it was like they played quite a nice, exciting brand of rugby against for a team on paper. Treviso are not bad. Their center partnership of Fekintoa and Mancello, they're not a bad team, but I think Connacht needed this win to be that statement win. As I said at the start, I think I said last week, this is their statement win. This is their season started. The only way is up for Connacht, and with the benefit of Lancaster there, their new style of play, their almost instant evolution. I'm quite excited to see how they play. In the middle of the season, at the end of the season, and see how much they progress throughout it.
Yeah, definitely. And it is a weird one to be as excited as we are on as many provinces as we are. But like I think we're being rewarded on that, to be
Yeah.
honest with you, lads. I said four sides in the top eight. We'll wait and see on that last one. We'll move on to that last province now though, and to Adam's beloved Ulster, who had a bonus point win of their own, 42-21 over the Dragons on Friday night. And Adam, we'll get on to them for myself and Ben's opinion in just a second. But for you, what you make of that? And yes, I understand you had the oh my god, this season is going to be 0-18 moment at the very start. But aside from all
Yeah.
that, aside from that minute of pain, how'd you make it?
I sent I sent that meme in, and within 10 seconds, I sent it into both group chats, and within 10 seconds, Newport scored. I think it was a pretty dogged display. I think the try at the very first minute really set well, actually, I think the try in the 16th minute for Newport really set it the tone for me in terms of panic stages. But I just feel like this back line and the forward pack and the attack in general worked so nicely. I think the stats were that we had 18 offloads. 18 offloads. It felt like Michael Lowry, every single time he got tackled, he was like flinging it above him, flinging it behind him, setting up any type of try, sidestepping four players and going through. You know, I think Hugh said on the other podcast as well that Newport's defense did look static. However, it's one of those that Ulster last season I don't think were as as dangerous enough to score those type of tries. I feel like we're looking very much like it very much looked like that we were getting coached by Dwayne Peel again, the way that we were playing in the back line, sort of that everyone could express themselves, you can do what you want, this is how we can play it. And it showed. James Hume had a really good game. He had a really good game. Stuart McCluskey had a really good game. The back three were immense. Zach Ward was toppling over boys. Cormac Izuchukwu, another one that played really well. He was toppling over boys, making meters, running down the wing in some points as well. And I also feel like O'Toole looks like he looks like a big unit now. Like he was really hitting the gym this summer. And we really need to see like players like him kick on for us so that they can get on to places like Ireland. And that man right there, Michael Lowry, he knows that Hugo Keenan's out injured. We just need a couple of string of games from him as well, and we'd hopefully see him again in an Ireland shirt. I think one cap is a distrust to how well he's played over the years. And hopefully he gets rewarded with the Ireland jersey and also just pure consistency because that's what we need for Ulster. We need consistency. Six tries is really good, but I feel like our real test is going to come against Edinburgh this week.
Yeah, and I'm delighted to hear you say that because for me, I tuned into a couple of podcasts yesterday. Now, granted, every podcast I did was like Ryder Cup, non-Ryder Cup, Ryder Cup, non-Ryder Cup, because for obvious reasons. But I did get the sense that people were like, "Oh my God, Ulster, they were so good, they were so this, they were so that," and I was like, "Look, hold on, guys, let's just wait a second. It was the Dragons. These are games Ulster have won before on a Friday night on BBC, and no one really pays much attention, but because." There's a Mark Sexton factor and there's a Richie's contract year factor. I think there's a little bit of a, oh, they're doing really well. But saying that, so I just put a bit of buyer beware on them. But saying that, they look decent. I thought Zach Ward or Werner Koch are ready to. I think they complement each other if they want to be the other man across from Jacob. Thought Lowry was excellent. Izuchuku was absolutely brilliant in this game. And Ben, it is like as Adam said, it's about consistency for Ulster. It's about not dropping the next game and the next game after that, and then you're a little bit shaky. But it was a good base layer to start from.
It was. Look, in terms of performance, I think Adam's right. I think it was exactly what Ulster needed to do to this Dragons team. 18 offloads. For like, if Connacht did it, we'd be saying it was wonderful, it was excellent. If Munster did it against anyone, we'd be saying, "Oh my God, we're throwing the ball around like Japan." For Ulster to throw 18 offloads in the game, score
Miho.
six. I didn't even notice the jersey. Yes, excellent. To throw 18 offloads to score 6 tries. I thought Doak looked really good. He always
Yeah.
does, but I thought he looked excellent. Tom O'Toole, you're right, he looked huge. He looks like he's put on that extra weight to try and push into that Irish squad again. From an Ulster PV, you probably don't want him to. You probably want to keep him there for the minute if he keeps playing to this level. Um, Look, it was Dragons. It's not going to define their season. But in terms of an open day out at home when there was no real hope going into it, yeah,
Yeah, you take that absolutely.
I
Yeah, Adam, just one last point because we do need to
yeah.
move on to next week.
Sorry. To add on to Ben's point about Nathan Doak, it's almost like it looked like he had a bit of pressure taken off him because I don't know if that was just me making up a story in my head, but it looked like there was a bit of pressure taken off him because Cooney wasn't breathing over his shoulder. I
yeah.
do feel like him getting given that 9 jersey, his place kicking was unbelievable. I thought he was really sharp off the ruck as well. I don't think like last season we had issues with him being really slow to the rucks. This season he was running and he was just kept on going for it. He didn't really wave his arms at anything, which was really good. But I think that's almost like the pressure being taken off him, but I don't know if I'm making him out of a molehill with that one.
Like his pass speed was Casey-esque at times. He genuinely Doak was really, really good on Saturday.
Yeah. And
Friday.
the one thing is, it was the Dragons. And we'll wait and see. And I think Ulster have
Yeah.
that kind of block of early fixtures. And I just pull that up now if I have it. They have Edinburgh this weekend, and then they followed that with, of course, my. Anyways,
Like we could have a position where 3 provinces have 2 wins and 1 province has none. I don't get into it, fine,
oh
but
yeah,
we could very much be in that position come
absolutely.
Sunday afternoon.
But I think
Um,
that's where it's important to note. And like, so Ulster have Edinburgh, then they have their South African trip against the Bulls and Sharks.
yeah,
And or sorry, they got the Bulls at home, I think, isn't it? And then Sharks and
Yeah, it's
Lions
Bulls
away.
at home.
Like they could be 2 wins from five
are
after
Sharks
that. You
traveling
don't
down
know.
with Ulster? Yes, Sharks will be traveling down the same time because Sharks are
Yeah,
in the or Sharks are in the Viva.
on the same week that Ulster host the Bulls. Yeah.
So they both have travel. It's not like one has an advantage
Mhm.
other than the
But
Sharks and the
still,
Sharks.
tough
But
games.
oh
And I
yeah,
think that's
yeah,
where it's important to judge Ulster. I thought for Connacht, it was first 6 games. For Munster, it was probably first 6 games. Like for Ulster, it's maybe five, just because that's when the South African trip ends. For Leinster, it's not even that. It's like fucking January by the time we can really judge them.
I know
But
for
Leinster,
Leinster it's first 2 games at this point. It's excellent.
no, that's just you.
That's just
David
me.
will be
That's
back
just
next
me.
week to defend them. We've gone into loads of detail and all this, so just really quickly, I'll just go one to the other. Adam, really quickly, Edinburgh Ulster this weekend. We don't need a prediction. What are you looking for from Ulster?
I'm looking for consistency. I'm looking for like consistency from where we played. I'm looking for consistency in the backs, and also the forwards had a pretty good game as well. I'm looking for some like forward brutishness. And you didn't ask for a result. Should I say a
No.
result?
That'll
Okay.
be on Twitter this week. Follow at the Intro Show on Twitter. We will share our predictions. I get onto that in just a moment. Ben, Connacht Scarlets, what do you expect there?
Uh, Connacht will have a tougher game, but if they keep that same level of play, you want Connacht to have consistency against Ibert Ulster. You want them to keep that same kind of game plan up. Be be brutish, be big, be fast. It's a tougher game. See what you're made of, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam, Bulls Leinster. It's probably the game of the week. It may not end up being the game of the week.
Leinster need to reply. I think any type of reply is good. They need that bullish performance, like we said. I don't see Leinster getting nilled again. I think any type of points is good. Well, it's one of those. Like I
Harsh.
need to keep the Leinster fans
It's so
sometimes.
weird to be
Sometimes
saying
when it
any
has.
points is an improvement for Leinster.
Well, it is.
It
It
is.
really is because it's a weird time that we live in with Cardiff and Stormers nailing them. It's a weird time. We don't know. The end might be near, but we don't know yet.
Maybe it is. And final game, Ben, I'm sure you'll be at Munster Cardiff on Saturday Night Lights. Again, is it consistency or is it the flow or what is it for Munster?
One, I can't wait to be back. East Harris has been calling my name for months. Look, same again. B, be a C word up front. Get the ball out wide quickly. We know what the game plan's going to look like. Let's expand on it even further and bring some nice rugby home because it's been a long time since Thomond Park's had flowing rugby.
Yeah,
Please.
well, that's where the weather can prove a decisive factor. Just on those predictions, last week Adam and David went 4-0, predicting wins for the Stormers and then for the other three Irish provinces. Ben and I were caught by Benetton and Leinster's no-show, so apologies there, but I do have the bragging rights of being the leader on our fantasy league after round one, which is important.
I've only picked three players of that team because I was so busy with work.
That was smart. Always
I
put in a
must be.
15.
Oh,
But it's fine. I'll be the only one who remembers by the end of the season anyway, so I'll win by default. But gentlemen, we'll leave it at that for tonight. We'll be back next week with more action for the United Rugby Championship. Maybe David will be back. Maybe his flight from South Africa. I mean, sorry, maybe he won't. We'll wait and see. But as always, and I should say this in the middle of the show, I always forget. If you like what you see here, please do smash the like and subscribe buttons on the Global Gay line. We're trying to get to 800 subscribers very, very soon. Hopefully, we can do just that. And producer Lee G will be in the comment section watching, as does Adam, to be fair, and Ben from time to time. Let us know what you thought of the four provinces. But as always, gentlemen, from me, Caolán, from all the lads, until next time, chat to you next Monday, or next Tuesday even. Slán lads.